So, credible government whistleblowers confirm there are aliens, and they're 10 feet tall. Now, you know when I told everybody you need a 338? Ha! You thought I was just talking about elk. 300 grain bullets going at least 3,000 feet a second. That's what we're gonna need. If you don't have a 338, you better get one ordered. All right. So, last time we went out and shot the 33XC and it did not shoot. And we made a quick video and put that video up. That thing has 5,000 views in less than a week, which is, for us, that's a real big deal. You realize we're not Mr. Beast. This isn't Demolition Ranch, okay? 5,000 views for us is a big deal. And the only thing I can assume is it must have really hit a nerve. And I think it's kind of a universal experience throughout the whole shooting community where you get a new gun or even a new used gun and say it's whether it's an off-the-shelf gun, a rack gun, or a custom gun, and you take it out and it doesn't shoot. And I mean, it's so, absolutely so frustrating. And it's hard then to figure out what the solution is because there's so many variables. You got scopes, bullets, powder, primers. I mean, there's so much stuff. All I'll say to you is, since the day we shot that and made that video, I have been working on getting a solution for this for a straight week. I haven't done anything else. I've either worked on that, answering people on the video. Oh, by the way, I better stop and say thank you for all the people. 5,000 views. We got a whole bunch more subscribers. I mean, just thank you, because we really do appreciate that. I mean, all the work we do, it's just kind of validation. It's like, all right, at least someone appreciates this, because to us, that's a big deal. I mean, it still doesn't make any money. If you get 5,000 views, that's like nothing. It makes like, I don't know, 10 bucks or something. But it helps, and we really appreciate it. So that's one thing. Next thing. You know, sometimes when you're young, something bad happens, and you think, oh my God, it's the end of the world. Like a teenage girl. You know, she's 16, 17, she breaks up with her boyfriend. Oh my God, it's the end of the world. Everything, I might as well just kill myself. And sometimes they do. Well, you know, as you get older, you begin to realize sometimes things that seem really bad at the moment actually turn out to be blessings, or maybe even turn out to be really good. Now, we're not there yet with this 33XC, but I got to tell you, there's a lot that has transpired since we made that video. So we shot that on Saturday, last Saturday, and we made that video on Sunday. Monday morning, I called Brooks, and at Brooks, I talked to Ken. And so as I go through this, I'm gonna have to say thank you to a ton of people. So Ken is outstanding. Brooks is an outstanding company. He was genuinely concerned, absolutely genuinely concerned. And when I initially called him up, I said, Ken, I got a problem. Just watch the video and then we'll decide what to do. And he's like, okay, I will. And so he hung up. And he said, I'll call you back after I watched it. Well, he didn't realize it was like a 45-minute video. So he called me back and he said, I only got to watch part of it. He said, don't do anything. I want to watch the rest of the video tonight and I want to talk to some people. This was critical. And I think he said, I want to talk to one of the guys that was involved in the creation of the 33XC and the development of it. Now, I'm not sure because I don't hear very good. But he hung up and he said, I'll call you back. Well, guess what? Very next day, he called me back. And then we talked about it at length. And he said, because initially he just wanted me to send him the barrel. He said, did you take the barrel off yet? And I said, no. He said, good, don't do it. He said, I talked to some guys, he said guys, about this. And he said, tell me what your reamer chamber neck dimension is. And I said, I had to actually look it up because I can't remember all this. I said 365, 0.365. And he said, what is your loaded cartridge diameter? And I said, 0.363. That's 2 thou clearance total, 1 thou on a side. And he's like, whoa, that's way too much. He said the guys that build a lot of these, the guys that work with these, maybe the guys that developed it, he said 6 thou clearance. Well, 6 thou clearance, that's 3 on a side. In bench rest shooter world, that's huge, that's big, right? That to me almost defeats the purpose of running tight necks. All right, but way back in your brain, you know, you find information, you remember things. I remember guns that would not shoot with tight, loaded round neck clearance. In other words, for reasons unknown, whether it's more pressure, more volume of pressure, because you realize we're lighting off 120 grains of powder, right? It's a big volume of gas. For whatever reason, some guns won't shoot tight. And really, the industry standard is anywhere from like 1 thou clearance is like 3. 3, like you're building 7 mags, 300 Winchester, stuff like that. 3 thou clearance, 1.5 thou on a side is enough. Okay, that's generally enough, and they will really shoot right there. I like to run it tighter if I can, because then you don't need dies. And I don't have time to go into all that, okay? The deal is, you can just take a fired piece a piece of brass out of the gun and reuse it, which I'm gonna get to that in a second. But anyways, he's like, no, go to 6 thou total clearance, 3 on a side. So remember, I fired 60 shots out of this gun. So what I did was, I knocked out all the primers with a dedicated decap die. In other words, nothing touched the case. Nothing on the case whatsoever. Knocked out all the primers, and I had other loaded cartridges, brand new brass, that I hadn't fired. So they had brand new Federal 215M primers in them. You know, 215M, the things that absolutely you just cannot obtain. I had to knock them out. Man, that hurt, knocking out brand new primers. I knocked them out, and then what I did is I turned the necks, returned the necks on all of them. Now when you turn necks, brass grows. So what I also then had to do is I had to trim them all back to the original length -1. Okay, I just did that on the chance that the case mouth might be touching the leading edge of the chamber. But probably not, because them other two 33XCs literally shot 1 hole. And they shot 1 hole with only 2 thou clearance. Now I'm gonna be jumping all over the place here because there's just too much to remember. But those other 2 guns had Bartlein barrels in them. And they had 5-groove 5R. This Brux barrel on that 33XC is a 6-groove. And I never built any 338s in 6-groove. It's always been 5. What we theorized when I was talking to Ken is perhaps the way the bullet engraves into the rifling, the way the pressure curve is, perhaps the difference between 5R, and 6 might have something to do with the fact that this thing, not this thing, the 33XC, wants more clearance. I don't know. We don't know that yet. But that's one thing. So I turned them all. Then, of course, I used my actual primer pocket uniformer tool, all the ones that had been fired, cleaned the primer pockets. Right. Okay. Then I removed the firing pin and went to run them all back in the chamber, all of them. The new, which I had already done, and the ones fired. And remember, there was 60 cases. Now here's what's really interesting, and this is the important part of this. So the first potential problem is maybe our loaded cartridges are too big. Too big. We don't have enough clearance. The second thing is, when I went to run them all back through the gun, out of 60 fired cases, only 15 would go back in the gun and the bolt would close easily. They actually went in like as if they were brand new. Then there was about another 10 or so that went in with resistance. Then there was about another 10 that went in hard. There was 3 of them that would not go back in the gun. They simply wouldn't go back in the gun, okay? They were that, you could beat them in probably with a dead blow hammer. All right. Remember, if you haven't saw the other video, that was Peterson brass. And the first, I've had 2 or 3 different lots of it in 33XC. This lot, the customer bought. He bought 250 pieces of it. And he sent me 110. Well, immediately, I had to throw out 10 pieces because the primer pockets were mangled. I mean, it just, whatever tool, they were destroyed. The flash holes some of them had almost a double flash hole through it. Like the punch or the pin went through it twice and they were way off center. So I had to get rid of 10 of them right to begin with. And I'm like, wow, this is not that great a lot of brass. So now then I have the experience of shooting them and then trying to put them back in the gun, and they're all over the place. They're all over the place, which to me indicates non-uniform hardness or non-uniform softness, whatever you want to say. They're not uniform, because on the chronograph numbers, even when we were up high on one end and down low on the other, we never varied more than about 150 feet a second. So you're not going to go, unless you're absolute max, you're not going to go from the bolt dropping like it's a new case to you can't even get it to go back in the gun if the brass was all uniform. So I'm guessing that we have two problems right there. We have the loaded cartridge neck being too large, potentially, and we have bad brass, literally bad brass. Then there's also something that I saw that I don't want to say anything about it, but I saw something. You know, I don't blueprint bat receivers, okay? I used to, like, all my Remingtons, all my Stillers, a bunch of other different receivers. I never trusted them, so I always blueprinted all of them. And some of those guns were my very, very, very best shooting guns. Just absolutely one-hole guns. But bats, I don't touch bats, because bats, you know, they're like, we maintain a half a thou across the board in every single operation, and I have found that that is true. So I don't touch them, also because they're very hard. These are all melanited, so I don't touch them. But I saw something that might be another issue, but I'm not sure, okay? I'm not sure about that yet, so I'm not going to say anything. What I did then is we laid all the targets out, and we picked out the two best ones, which happened to be number 10 and number 11, sequentially. And we looked at what powder charge that was, what bullet seating depth that was, which bullet that was, and we duplicated all of it, and I loaded them all back. Now here's the interesting thing. When I say all back, all of the ones that were brand new cases, I put primers back in, I put primers in all of them. But the 15 that have been once fired, I loaded them all back. And I didn't do anything to the case, because you have such tight neck clearance. When that case expands to leave the bullet, to release the bullet, it snaps right back. So I had very uniform neck tension. Now here's what's really interesting, because this actually tells you a lot. After those 15 were loaded, I spun them all. I have never in my life there's no run out. I mean, you often see on my target 0 run out. Well, that means definitely less than 1 thou. This is definitely less than 1/10,000th. I couldn't even measure at all. They were perfectly straight. So that tells me also the chamber is good, which I assumed that it was, right? I did it, right? It's a Manson Reamer, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I did all that. So anyways, here's where we're at with the 33XE. I think I got 59 now. 59 loaded again, 15 once fired loaded again, and we're ready to go back out and shoot the gun again. Now here's the deal. It's 5 o'clock this evening. We were supposed to leave this evening, go to where we're going to shoot, sleep overnight there, be completely set up at the crack of dawn to be shooting. The issue is it's supposed to rain tonight. So what I think we're going to do is we're going to go home instead. We're going to get up. I think we're setting the alarm at 1 a.m. And we're going to be sitting there in the dark with the range completely set up. Where I think I'm going is even farther. It's like 85 miles away, but it's in the woods. It's an old rock quarry. There's a giant rock wall behind you, and it's woods down both sides. So hopefully I can get 0 dead calm conditions. So, and I don't want to forget some things now on this update. So Ken was excellent. Brooks was excellent. The customer is a shooter. He fully understood. There's things we don't have control over. You know what I mean? There's a lot of things I do not have control over. And it's even interesting, like, you know, say like Brooks. Do you realize too, they buy their steel. They have to buy it. So there's things that they don't have control over. And if you want to follow it on down the line, the steel manufacturer, the steel mill, do you realize they have to buy all the components that go into making steel? I've actually been fortunate enough to be in a steel mill, and it's like mixing a cake, like a giant cake. Them guys throw in bags that look like feed sacks of nickel or chromium or whatever it is that they need to come up with the right mix of steel. So the whole way down the line, there's no one direct that has full control over everything and that can be directly responsible, say, for a gun that doesn't shoot, unless the gun builder does something obviously wrong, right? Okay, but we're just assuming everybody did everything right. The other thing about Kenneth Brooks was, it is the amount of confidence he has that the barrel isn't bad. He told me things in confidence, how many barrels they made last year and how many came back. And it's like, that's returned. It's like 0.000% of bad barrels. In other words, they don't get bad barrels, okay? So he's so confident, because, okay, I better, actually there's more I better say about this. Those guys know what it takes to build a gun because they've built guns. They are shooters. I'm not just talking about Brooks now here. Let's just say, just off the top of my head, Brooks, Krieger, Bartland, and let's put Dan Little in this too. They're all shooters. Actual, honest to gosh, obsessed shooters. They're all competitors. They're all hunters. They know. They've all built guns, all of them, in their own shops. They know what it takes to build a gun. And then they know what it's like to take it out and shoot it, and it doesn't shoot. Okay? Just like that's how I got into this business, is desiring extreme accuracy. Most of these guys, that's exactly how they got into barrel making. It's not like they woke up one day and said, let's start a company. I can build toilet seats, bicycles, four-wheelers, or barrels. Hey, let's do barrels. No, that's not how it was, okay? It came out of their passions, just like this came out of my passion for accurate hunting rifles. All right, so now I want to tell you something else. I called Bartland, and the reason I called Bartland is not because we're like, oh, we'll switch back to Bartland. Don't be narrow-minded about this. It's not that Bartland shoot better than Brooks, or Brooks shoots better than Krieger. That's not it. You can get a good one from anyone, you can get a bad one from anyone. But I called Bartland because we have 3 customer 338 barrels for up on order. We ordered them like last January, coming up for customer builds. And I thought, well, let's call them and see if we could add some more to that order. So I actually had Vicky call. Vicky called, she didn't get anybody. She left a message. Guess what? They called back. They called me back, said, what's the problem? And it was a fellow named Brad, which Brad, kudos to you. We normally deal with Frank Green, excellent, very smart guy. But Brad happened to be the guy in charge of this. And I told him what the problem was. He's like, oh, bummer, right? Why does he say that? Because they're shooters. And I said, could we add 2 more barrels to our already 3-barrel order? And he's like, you know what? Let me check with the production manager. Oh, and I said, and could we get them quick? You know, quick, all right? Faster, all right? And he's like, let me check with the production manager. Guess what? He calls me back. He says, yes. He said, yes, you can add 2 more barrels to that order. And he said, you will get them within. And it's a really reasonable time period, because he knows if I can't get that gun to shoot, I'm going to need another barrel, right? I'm going to need another barrel to make it right. And so since someone's already on order. So anyways, so the customer was excellent. Brooks is excellent. Bartland was excellent, was just absolutely excellent as trying to accommodate us to solve this problem. And so I can't say enough about any of them guys, really. They just, everybody, what we thought was a really bad situation, in some ways turned out to be really good, because we got a zillion views. Evidently this hit a nerve with people, and every single person that's involved in it, they have been outstanding. Just outstanding. So I really honestly want to say thank you to everybody. Now, we still have to go out and shoot the gun, and there's no guarantee that what we've done is going to fix it. At that point, if I can't get it to shoot, then the barrel will come off, and then it'll go back to Brooks. Oh, and wait, there was something else there that was important. Oh, you know what? When I told Ken, of course he watched the video, that I put 60 through it, he's like, why did you do that? Okay, why did you do that? And listen, sometimes we know things and we violate our own rules. I knew 60 was too many. Okay, I knew that. If you guys got to get this. If a gun is going to shoot, it's going to shoot. It's going to shoot at shots 2, 3, 4. It's going to be shooting for sure by shots 20, 25, 30. Again, I think it's Tony Boyer that says in his book, he could evaluate any barrel in 30 shots. It's either a Hummer, it's a good barrel, it's not so good, it's a piece of scrap. I totally agree with that. But when you're shooting a customer's gun, and there's so many things, you know, so many things going on, and it's a giant cannon. It's not a 6 PPC bench gun where I can just sit in there and shoot at free recoil and watch the bullets go through one hole. I had to give the gun every chance I possibly could. Okay, I had to, because I had to know. You can't just be like, oh, well, it's a bad barrel, send it back. Yeah, the thing about all of this is, as much as I want it to shoot, I want to know why it didn't. I really do. I want to know why it didn't. Okay, so I think maybe that covers everything with the 33XC. We're going to go back out, weather permitting, tonight or tomorrow, and we're going to shoot it again. And that's why I said that. This time, I am not putting 60 rounds through it. Those 15 of the ones fired, if they don't shoot, nothing will. Now, yes, I have more with me, but I am bringing other bullets too, by the way. So I got the original Burger. I got a different lot of Burgers. I got 300 grain Sierra Match Kings. This time I'm not taking the Lapua Skinars because they shot good, but they didn't shoot any better than the Burger, so there's no point. I think that's it. So there'll be another update at some point, or you'll see us out shooting it. Oh, and I promised to put up the original video when we went out to shoot it. The problem is, it's like an 18-hour long day, and Vicky's going to be there forever getting it edited. So when she finally does get to it, it might just be like a condensed fast-forward video, because we had an excellent setup. The place we were shooting was really good. And so anyways, you'll see all that. Now, I got to stop on that. Something totally different. So let's start right here. Not this isn't totally different. So this is a 7 mag with a 315 neck in it. Pretty much our standard build, a McMillan HTG Huber 2-stage. I already talked about Huber. He's raised the price too high. This one just has Remington bottom metal in it, only because it fits so nice. Okay, this has a Bat HR repeater. This is a Krieger, I think a 1-in-8/7 shallow flute. Okay, remember we don't do any deep fluting anymore. No muzzle brake. Okay, and listen to this. So I might have mentioned this on another video. You know, every year they have the anniversary down at the Jack O'Connor Center, which is just right down the road from us. And they had a little gun show down there. And they said, do you want to bring your guns? And I'm like, yeah, we'll bring some of them down. And so guess what? I don't know. You probably can't see that. This gun was flawless. See that right there? I took it to a gun show. Got 2 little scratches in it. Guess who did it? Me. God. You know how I work to get these things perfect, especially the fit and finish, and then I put a scratch on it. So, this is an inventory gun, assuming it shoots. This is an inventory gun. It will be available. But since I have to fix that anyways, I'm thinking about splattering this black. I'm going to leave the metalwork the color it is for sure. But this right here, it is two-tone. I don't know if you can tell that. I splattered it with a different, whatever this base color is, I splattered it with a different one. I might just splatter this in black, and hopefully it'll, you know, those little scratches will be repaired. All right, now, that's nothing so strange. Here's something. We're going to take this gun with us tonight or tomorrow, if we can. Here's something I've never done. So this is Burger 184 grain F-class bullets, right? Look at the coefficient on that. The G1, look at the G1, 695. My God. So anyways, obviously the F-class guys are having really good luck with these bullets, setting all kind of records and stuff. My normal routine when I build a new 7 mag is to use 180 grain Burger yellow box VLDs, and they always shoot. But hey, I figured, what the heck? I had the opportunity to get some of these, so we're going to try 184 grain. I'm just calling these 184 Fs That's what we've been writing down. It's just easier. So I'm going to try that. So you haven't saw those before. Now, look at this. I guarantee you haven't saw this before because I have never used it. So forever and ever, when we build a new 7 mag, I have this certain test load, right? It's not the optimum load. It's just something that works every time. For years now, it's been Retumbo. A certain charge of Retumbo. You can't get Retumbo anymore. I am down to my last unopened 8-pound jug. If you want to offer me $10,000 for it, call me up. You can't get it. You can't get it anywhere, all right? So we have to have a replacement. What just so happens that this is on the burn rate chart, this is exactly, there's nothing between them. It's Retumbo and then Stable HD. So I figured, hey, what the heck? And this is available, right? So if it works, I'm going to go ahead and switch and just, I'm not gonna have a choice. It's not like, I'm gonna quit Retumbo. It's like, I'll be out of Retumbo, especially if I would happen to sell that last jug, which I don't know if I want to. All right, now, this you've never seen here, okay? Built for professionals. Now I want you to look at this. Can you see that? And people are probably like, what the heck is that doing there? You guys are Schmidt-Bender people. Well, listen, I got to talk about scopes just for a minute, all right? When we started out with all this, all I wanted to do was put everything I could in our favor. So at the time, the original Schmidt-Bender 5 to 25s, it was acknowledged as probably the single best variable scope in the world. It just was. They still are outstanding. I'm not saying they were, but you gotta realize this is like 20 years ago now. There was nothing else. You didn't have all these other scopes then. And so I just made the decision that I'm gonna use, that was gonna be my testing scope and that was gonna be my personal scope. Could I afford it? Heck no. They were expensive then, they're really expensive now, right? It's just that I wanted to eliminate one more variable. And I figured using those did that. Now, in these later years, right now, if I had a choice, if there was a Collis 5 to 25 and a Schmidt-Bender 5 to 25, and there's almost $1,000 difference in the price, the Collis being less expensive, I'd take the Collis, absolutely. Mechanically, they are excellent. Optically, they're so close. I'd give a slight edge to the Schmidt-Bender, but they're so good, you just can't believe how good they are. And yes, of course, you got a whole bunch of other ones then, a bunch of other high-end scopes. But you know, you're talking now, the low end now is $3,000 for these kind of scopes. The high end now, some of them are getting up over $5,000. $5,000 to us is an enormous amount of money. I mean, to think like, I'm gonna buy a $5,000 scope. So, I don't know why it even came into my head. I thought maybe we should try some less expensive scopes and see if they'll hold up. Well, I did a whole bunch of research and the PRS guys are using this one. This is the 3.5 to 21, or they're using, I think that other one is a 5 to 36 or a 6 to 36. And the deal is they're working. At least that's what they say. They're working. This is the first one I ever held in my hands. But they're maintaining point of impact, it seems like, and they're repeatable, right? They're repeatable. So I thought, you can get this scope, by the way, for like $1,600, not $3,000. And so this is a lighter gun. This is our smaller gun. And I wanted a smaller scope. And by the way, I must admit, when I started doing this, the scope I like on these guns, the very best, is the straight Schmidt-Bender 10 power by 42 millimeter objective. Those scopes are awesome on a smaller, lighter gun. But it's only 10 power. And like I've said before, way out there at 10 power, things start to look small. So you want some more power. The thing is too, you can't, I don't know whether they discontinued them. You can't find them. You can't find them. It used to be able to get that Schmidt-Bender for $2,000, right? So anyways, I did a bunch of research and I came across these, right? And so I thought, hey, let's just get one. Well, when I opened the box and picked it up, this thing is heavier than a Schmidt-Bender. It's heavier than a Collis. It's it's heavy as the ZCO. This is a heavy scope. And I always take a flashlight with any new scope and I look down inside there. And it takes a little bit of technique, but if you know what to do, you can look down in there and you can see how it's put together, for lack of a better term. This thing's heavy duty, people. Heavy duty. Now, I've held it up. I've been looking at it outside for quite a bit, just messing around with it. No, the optical quality is not the same as Schmidt Bender, but it didn't cost $3,000 or $4,000. It cost $1,500, okay? But it's very good. Now here's the other thing, and I'm not really doing a review right now, but the clicks are very positive, very, very positive, both the elevation and the windage. The power ring has good resistance on it, just enough. There's no way it's gonna accidentally get bumped off. It's stiff, but not too stiff. The only, oh, and it has a fast focus eyepiece on it, right? And the reticle in here, I don't know, whatever they call this. What do they call that, Vicki? What do they call that?
The EOL.
EOL? Anyways, the reticle in here, when you look through it, it is very similar to an H59, okay? Which I like H59s. They're busy, but you can definitely work with them, right? That's if you're not gonna click. So, yeah, it's made in Japan, right? But guess what? The $3,000, $3,500 night forces say made in Japan also, okay? I mean, it's not made in Austria, it's not made in Germany, but it also doesn't cost that much, right? So the only drawback that I saw with it is the parallax adjustment. What you'll notice with different model, really high-end scopes, is some of them, the parallax almost doesn't matter. Here, look at this. And what I mean by that is, you could have the parallax set on, say, 100 yards, and you say you're shooting at 200, and you move your head around, and there's almost no parallax. And what's also interesting with the really high-end scopes is it's not blurry. It's crystal sharp, right? Or it could be set at 300 yards, and say you're shooting at 200, and there's almost no parallax, and the image is clear. What I notice with this is, it is parallax critical. So if it's 100 yards, and not necessarily by the markings, but if it's 100 yards, you ranged it at 100 yards, and you've got to dial out the parallax, is what I'm trying to say. It doesn't, there's not a lot of forgiveness on either side of wherever the parallax is actually dialed out. And it's not clear. It's not razor sharp. So if you're, say the parallax is dialed out at 300, but now you're looking at 200, because I was doing this outside, messing around with the rangefinder, you've got to reach up and change it or the image is blurry, okay? But again, you can't expect a $1,500 Bushnell to be exactly the same as, say, a $4,000 Schmidt Bender. You just can't, all right? But I'm gonna tell you something. That's what we're gonna do here. That's what we're up here for. We're not here to make a video. I'm gonna put this in Badger rings. I'm gonna mount this up. Now when I take this gun out to shoot it, yes, I'm gonna use my Collis 5-25 to get everything, to check everything out, see how it shoots. But then I'm gonna put this on here and I'm gonna leave it on here and I'm gonna just test it, shoot it, whatever. If someone wants this gun, I think it's gonna go as a package. I haven't decided for sure, but if this thing holds up and does everything that it's supposed to do, and this gun, it hammers with this gun, the gun hammers with this scope, I think it's gonna go as a package. So, I think that's all. So what started out a week ago as really bad has actually become really good. Hopefully tomorrow, all them bullets are gonna go through the same hole. The only thing is, we won't know on that 33XC. We won't know for sure if it's because I gave it more loaded round neck clearance, or because I shot that brass and it blew out and now it's perfectly straight, or if it was bad brass, or it's that one other thing that I'm not gonna mention because I'm not sure. So anyways, we'll keep you updated. Maybe we'll see you at 1 a.m.